in Olathe. We're here on Red Zone Extra, Facebook Live, talking Chiefs with the gang. Here they are. To my far left is Sam Mellinger. Got Vahe Gregorian right here. Sam McDowell is here, all in somewhat, as Jason said, muted tones. And then to our far right, we have Herbie T.O.P. rocking the canary.
You can't miss it.
It looks good. It looks good. It looks good. So yeah, Olathe, one of the great NFL players, went to an Olathe high school. Did he not?
Darren Sproles.
Sure did. Darren Sproles.
Yeah.
K-Stater.
K-Stater, yeah. Olathe North High. And
Kansas City's best NFL player?
I think the case can be made that I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but he should be on the ballot. He should be discussed as a Hall of Famer.
Wouldn't old heads make a case for Russ Washington?
That's who the other one might be. Russ Washington, Mizzou lineman, Chargers for a long time.
Yeah.
Was an all Pro Bowl guy for forever.
Yeah.
Those are the two I think would be at the top. So
you wouldn't know what it would be to be one of those old heads. He says, looking at two people in the middle.
So hey, you know the rules here on Red Zone Extra Facebook Live. Join us. Send us your question and your comments, and we'll try to get to as many as we can before we get out to Chiefs practice today, which is a good jumping off point to say this is an unusual week for the Chiefs and for those who cover the Chiefs because they play Monday night. We have not had any access or just a 15-minute teleconference with Andy Reid on Monday since the last Chiefs game, which was on Sunday at Tennessee, and I think it's worth exploring, diving back into the Chiefs' loss at Tennessee.
Too soon?
Maybe for some.
Too late?
A lot happened in that game, and I want to bring up a couple of issues for the Chiefs in that game, and I want you guys to tell me if you think I'm on the right track here. Patrick Mahomes had the second, not in terms of passer rating, but in terms of yards, the second most productive game of his NFL career, 446 yards, 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions, a 120 or plus, I think, passer rating game, a top 10 passer rating game for him. But in that same game, Chiefs, had a fumble return for a touchdown, had on one scoring drive, a drive that ended in a field goal, had 3 penalties in 4 plays, and their special teams, which has been really a strength under Andy Reid, really let him down, I thought, in a big way. So special teams problems, fumble problems, penalty problems in a game in which the Chiefs were favored to win, in which they got a magnificent game from their quarterback. Does this add up to some coaching issue, discipline issue? What is going on here when the Chiefs go into a stadium of an opponent in which they are favored to beat, like they were Sunday, and have all of these things happen? Herbie, you're always our leadoff guy.
I don't know if it's a coaching issue. I'm going to say it's a Titans issue. There's something about the Tennessee Titans, when they face the Chiefs, they seem to excel. They've won 4 straight now. You pointed out last week before the game that Andy Reid is 1-7 on his career against the Titans. Now he's 1-8. And to put that in perspective, Andy Reid is one of 7 NFL coaches in league history to record 200 or more career wins. He's 1-8 against the Titans. For some reason or another, the Titans seem to rise to the occasion. I think you also left off a key point here when you ran off that list. The defense had issues in that second half too. A couple of those players said they knew the Titans were going to come at them with Derrick Henry, and they didn't stop the run. Now, coaching, I will say this. Reggie Ragland, who's known for being a run stuffer, 17 snaps. It's unexplainable. It's inexplicable for that guy to have only 17 defensive snaps when you know the Titans are a running team. And they're not going to change their offensive philosophy. That's what they do. They run the football.
Let's talk about this a little bit. Personnel, especially defensive personnel in the game. Pennell was inactive, right? Colin Saunders and Derek Nottie played, I think, fewer than half of the defensive snaps in the game. The Titans as the Chiefs well know from their playoff loss a couple of years ago, have a running back, as you mentioned, Derrick Henry, who can take over a game. Would it not have been? Is it not questionable that the Chiefs were did not have the sort of the big guys up front that worked so well the previous week against Dalvin Cook and the Vikings?
It's a very fair question. It's a very fair concern as well, because Frank Clark, Sam was asking after the game, he was asking Frank Clark about the game, and then Clark even said they knew it was coming. You know what's coming, then you have to do everything you can to stop it. But again, they just didn't do it. Derrick Henry, they kept him in check the first half. 48 yards rushing in the first half on 9 carries. 140 yards and 2 touchdowns in that second half. They just gouged him.
I think the Chiefs would have taken a 100-yard game from Derrick Henry. 100.
Sure, they would have. That probably means they didn't have the 168-yard touchdown run, right? So, and look, it would have looked different with that. And that's kind of the funny thing. I mean, back to your original question, 4, 5, 6 things happen in there. Maybe 2 or 3 of them you can look at. I think we can say at least the botched snap and exchange was pretty fluky. I haven't looked this number up yet, but I'm trying to look up how many times James Winchester and Dustin Colquitt have basically successfully had that exchange, and it's probably in the neighborhood of, I'm guessing, 500 times on the field, not to mention thousands of times off it. I think it's just one weird piece of the stew here that came together. But in the end, the thing I keep thinking about is all the points you made, Blair and Herbie, that you just elaborated on. The Chiefs have basically sustained themselves through that. Now they're under 2 minutes. 3 things happen on each phase of the ball. Offense can't get a first down. Special teams, 2 blown plays in that.
Sure.
But in the end, the defense was free to stop the Titans, a running team, from going 61 yards with no timeouts. I think it was 61 yards. And they didn't even need all that time. I mean, the Chiefs actually had plenty of time left to try to score themselves.
Well, to put themselves in field goal position to tie it up.
So the defense, to me, it just still comes back to, when are you just going to count on the defense? I get that we feel like they've had some, upward trend here, and maybe they've been gelling together. We know that they're down on some personnel, but at some point you just want to feel like they made the stand to save the game.
Well, on that final Titans drive that resulted in the go-ahead touchdown, weren't the Chiefs in a press man and at a time when they should have played a little softer zone and kept the game in front of them instead of the touchdown itself was just man coverage, and I forgot who had the touchdown reception, but just ran right by, ran free into the end zone. I just thought it was the wrong defense to be in at that time, and I don't know. To me, it does. Yes, the defense was free to make the stop. I thought the defense should have been put in a better position. I think when it's time to think about player responsibility on the fumbles, and let's talk about the fumbles for a second. So Chiefs have lost 9 fumbles already this year. That's tied for 3rd in the NFL. This is a team that didn't do that. Famously, Kareem Hunt fumbled the first time he touched the ball as a pro and didn't fumble again in the rest of his Chiefs career. And already we've had Damian Williams, LaShawn McCoy, and Darrell Williams lose fumbles this year. So the fumble against Tennessee was a touchdown, returned for a touchdown. I had them written down here on the index card of knowledge. So previous to that, the McCole Hardman fumble against the Vikings to return the kickoff in the second half, short field touchdown for the Vikings. LaShawn McCoy's loaf of bread handling of the ball against the Packers negated a Chiefs scoring opportunity because it happened down in the red zone or close to the red zone. Mahomes fumble, a sack and fumble against the Texans. Texans took that in that changed the game, I thought. And then LaShawn McCoy's fumble against the Colts was another killer. So it's not just a fumble. It's the fumble that leads to scores or prevents Chiefs from scoring. These fumbles have been killers for the Chiefs. Don't fumble. Don't fumble. There's some good coaching there, don't you think? Don't fumble. Because it worked before, right? Obviously it worked before. Someone told them not to fumble, and they didn't fumble before. Well, apparently that message isn't getting across.
I thought the more I think about this game, the Titans game, the more I think that everybody in that room let Patrick Mahomes down. You know, it's interesting that he started something about 30 games, something like that. he hasn't had a bad one yet. He just hasn't had a stinker yet. And his numbers are pretty even in wins versus losses. And it just kind of depends on everybody else. So what you have is this rocket ship quarterback that is going to perform at an elite level pretty much every game. And it's just up to everybody else not to screw it up. And against the Titans, they screwed it up in every possible way. You talk about the personnel. There was, and I didn't notice this watching live, I don't know if anybody did, but the Derrick Henry, the 1-yard touchdown, when they were going right to left on your television screen, they had 10 guys on the field. And there was, I think the 11th guy was supposed to be right where Derrick Henry just
We think it was Frank
waltzed
Clark.
in. Yeah, I mean, it's just, that's 2 weeks in a row that there's been 10 guys on the field for a touchdown. The defense went completely limp on that last drive, but you're right. They weren't put in a position to succeed by the offense and the special teams. The offense, a 3rd and 2 for the best offense in the league, you got to convert that. The special teams gives up a PAT that was just missed, and then 2 field goals in a game that was decided by a field goal. The offense literally gave the Titans 7 points. Like everybody, I'll pardon the offensive line. I think those guys are playing hard. They've been just brutalized by injuries, and I think they protected pretty well. But other than that, pretty much everybody on that roster and the coaching staff let Mahomes down. I
think that's a pretty fair way of looking at it. I thought Mahomes had a terrific game. I didn't like. Listen, the 3rd and 2. We could spend an entire show talking about 3rd and 2. It didn't work. I think it was Andy Reid's call, and it didn't work. It had worked earlier. A variation of that had worked earlier in the year, right, against the Ravens to Darrell Williams. But it didn't work when. What I didn't like about it is that's the only option. When you run that play, if it's not there, the play is over. And as Mahomes demonstrated by tucking it and sliding, but he was still in field goal range when he did that. So it wasn't all was lost. That's when the field goal shenanigans happened. That was the botch snap field goal.
One thing, just to amplify, I think, Sam's point, and maybe it's occurred to everybody long ago, but it just in the last day or two occurred to me. Chiefs now have lost the last 3 games that Mahomes has played the entire game. It's a little bit of a testimony to that point that ain't enough for just him to be a megastar. And last year it seemed like that thin line between always having hope because of him and maybe playing more inspired football because of that, it seemed like that to me at times. Now you do wonder, I don't know if people are waiting for him to do something is exactly it, but I do wonder if it's having sort of a little bit of a different effect, like people not understanding they got to play to his game, they got to play to his level of excellence.
He's had Mahomes has had comic book ridiculous plays in games, throughout his short career here, and when he's had those, they've typically won those games. The no-look pass against the Ravens, the left-handed pass against the Broncos, both of those were last year. Well, you can make a case that his touchdown pass to Hardman on Sunday was as ridiculous a play. The more you think about it and the more you look at it, that's inhuman what he did, right? And they get that play and they don't win the game. Somehow don't win the game.
Right.
I'm kind of amazed by that.
There were 3 guys within 2 yards of him. The advanced analytics showed whenever he released that pass, and he had neither foot on the ground. To me, it shows that Patrick Mahomes isn't enough to win a football game. You have to have something else go your way. Their special teams completely failed him. Of course, on the field goals, which Vahe got into after the game. But to me, the most concerning thing was the defense, because for 3 weeks now we thought maybe they had figured something out. And against the Titans, against Ryan Tannehill, and I know, like you guys said, the offense didn't put him in a great spot there. You got to stop Ryan Tannehill from going 60 yards in a minute and 20 seconds. That assignment's got to get done.
I'm sorry, but the Rashad Fenton play, where it was 3rd and 10, 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 10, and Tannehill scrambles a little bit. And it wasn't just Fenton, who I think has been pretty good. Like, if we compare to expectations, I think he's been pretty good. But that was just a weak tackle, and maybe that's not a guy that's fair to expect to tackle. But then Tyrann Mathieu was just he was there, and I think Tyrann Mathieu's been a good player, but he was just kind of watching and just kind of letting the thing go. Frank Clark was coming on the back end. I know people have pointed that out, but to me, I thought that was a smart play. If Frank Clark's momentum would have carried
Easy
Tannehill
first down,
over
yeah.
the first down, I think that's got to be Matthew on the front end. And that was just a rotten play. You make that tackle, I think the game's over. You know, and then there's also all these things are popping in my head. They dropped
Rushing back. They're all rushing back.
Total recall.
They dropped 3 third down passes, and some of them were like good plays by the defense and could have been whatever. But like, help your quarterback out. You know, he's playing his ass off on a dislocated kneecap from 3 weeks ago. Like, catch the ball. Sammy Watkins had the worst one. I mean, he's wide open on that play. You got to make that catch.
Well, I thought that wasn't. I thought the other one was just as bad. The one down the right sideline where
Dropped in
Mahomes
there.
drops it. You guys were in
was
the
a
press
perfect
box.
pass.
Yeah, you guys were in the press box, and I was watching on TV. Tony Romo went nuts that Sammy Watkins didn't help his quarterback out in catching that ball.
It was a perfect pass.
I don't know if there's something still going on with his hamstring or something, but I don't think his body language was bad on Sunday.
Well, when he was on the end around or whatever we call it nowadays.
Jet sweepy thing.
Jet sweep, sorry. What was the term you used earlier? Old Manny?
Old head.
Old heady. But it looked like he, in a way I've never seen him do before, just kind of conceded the play and went out of bounds. I mean, he's often shown like real fight and aggressiveness in running the ball, like knocking people out of his way, and I wondered if he was a step off and I think it was the next play was Pringle and Hardman were in there, and it was the Hardman touchdown. I don't know. Sammy came back in obviously, but
right.
I don't think anybody said anything about any injuries after the game, but they may not.
No, not with Watkins anyway. But to your point, Sam, to get back to the defense, that was 35 points was the most the Chiefs had surrendered in the game this year.
Yeah.
The Titans hadn't been.
Of course, 7 are from the offense.
Well, that's right. That's right. And the Titans were in a juggernaut. I mean, they hadn't been scoring. That's not even with Henry, and they changed quarterbacks 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So. Look, Tannehill's now 3-1 as a starter, so maybe he is providing a little bit of a spark. But you also mentioned the special teams. The Chiefs, I wrote this down too, again, referring to the index card knowledge. Football, I think it's the website, Football Outsiders ranks special teams. They take into account, kicking, kick coverage, punting, punt coverage, et cetera, returns, everything. And the Chiefs right now, taking all those things into account, are 12th in the NFL, which I thought was pretty high, given their returns numbers have actually been better than a lot of teams. Previous years under Andy Reid, they've ranked 2nd, 4th, 1st, 9th, 3rd, and 1st. Prior to Andy Reid, the 7 years before Andy Reid, they averaged finishing 23rd in the NFL in special teams. So under Dave Toub, special teams had taken they've been terrific for the Chiefs. I imagine collectively, probably no team in the NFL has had as good a special teams over that 7-year period than the Chiefs, which is why it's so alarming to see field goals get botched. And McCole Hardman call a fair catch. I know it wasn't last week, but call a fair catch inside the 5, and the stupid and Hardman fumbling on kickoff returns, and the things that they're doing on special teams you're just not used to seeing with this bunch. And Dave Toub, who we've all believed is head coaching material, and this doesn't change that. But I just kind of feel bad for Dave, but something's not getting done. Some messages aren't getting across.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, I think we were talking about this earlier a little bit about what you might be called flukiness and oddity of the snap. But, let's look at the block kick. It was interesting there to hear the Titans player saying after the game that he'd been timing the cadence. And a part of what he did, I think he acknowledged this, was he didn't really care if he was offside. It wasn't going to hurt them if he went offside. It's like, I'm going for broke. I'm going to try to time it up and go. And he hit the timing just right. So the implication was that not they were giving away the cadence, but that they were giving away the cadence because they just kept doing it the same way. And I'm a little confused about what that actually meant in terms of how it played out, just because it seemed like it was a physical cue that led to the botched snap. But I don't know what Colquitt was calling out in addition to that. So there's a little more detail there to be filled
Usually
in.
it is physical, though.
Yeah, it's a nod or a look, right?
Yeah.
So when he said timing the cadence,
I would assume that's what he means.
It was less than, he wasn't hearing a verbal thing. He was just looking at each gesture and
I assume that he's
stealing
referring
signals.
to Colquitt or whoever it is not changing that up throughout the
Yeah.
game. And obviously they were on the field.
Half a beat from this or whatever. Yeah.
And they were on the field a lot on Sunday, so
They
he
were.
had a lot of opportunities to time that. Blake Bell also could have saved that from happening.
well, he could have.
Did it not look like Blake Bell was asked to block 2 people on that?
Yes.
That's
Maybe.
usually the case though for that guy on that position.
Quick
you come
chip,
out
and then
out late with your
yeah.
right arm, and he came out too late.
It was like he had his feet in cement. You know, like as good a jump.
He did not
as-
have the cadence memorized.
Right. I'm blanking on the Titans. It was Joshua
Kalou.
Kalou. As good as his jump was, that's how bad Blake Bell's
reaction,
jump was.
the
I mean,
Bell
it was
reaction.
just that guy had taken a step, maybe a step and a half before Bell even like got up out of his stance. It looked like.
The move there is outside first, then in, right, for that guy. I mean, got to get a shoulder into the.
It's opposite, right? You chip the guy the last.
I don't know.
I would think that the guy on the far outside has the longest to go because he's got to take the circular route, right? So I don't know. We'll ask Dave Tobe that
All
Friday.
you got to do is bump him once, though.
Right.
That's all
this
you got to
is-
do to disrupt that play from happening.
But this is 2 weeks in a row that somebody's got their hand on a Butker kick. Now, against the Vikings, they were fortunate.
Yeah, good point.
You
Yep.
know, because it was just a fingertip, and that came from up the middle.
Yep.
That was a heck of a play. So, again, special teams, this stuff hasn't happened to the Chiefs.
I feel like before Sunday, special teams had been, and I mean this literally, just unremarkable. Like, I don't think that they had been good or bad. I think they had just sort of been steady. And I don't know what their DVOA on
Right.
Football Outsiders was before Sunday. But they had some penalties, but not, if you really like look at the
No,
numbers.
I think they've had a ton of penalties on returns.
Not if you compare to other, yes, on
Kick
returns.
returns.
And weird penalties too. Like, but anyway, they just haven't. They haven't won a game. They haven't, and they haven't lost a game. Other than like Butker being a hero, against the Vikings. But Sunday, like I just don't remember the last time special teams was that. I mean, they just left 7 points on the field in a game you lose by 3, and it's just you can handle a missed field goal if the guy just, like the wind got it or he just hit it wrong or whatever. But these are just fundamental like mechanisms. You know, this is like.
Right,
Like not
right.
bad weather. This is like, just you get a flat tire. I mean, it's just like weird flat tire.
I like that.
Sorry.
That's where you get it repaired, right here.
It was just like fundamental. I just don't remember the last time, like literally just do not remember the last time that the Chiefs had those kinds of issues.
Well, what also stands out to me is nothing remarkable on returns, right? And I know Dave Tobe used the expression last week that they want to get Hardman to the point where he's as big a threat to take one all the way as Tyreek Hill is. And I'm thinking, you got Tyreek Hill. And what do you guys think goes into that decision to sort of hold Tyreek Hill in reserve on that and bring him out on special occasions?
19 targets.
He did. He had 19
I think
targets.
that's probably the primary factor that goes into that decision.
Well, I mean, could you give him 15 targets and have him return 4 punts?
Would you rather have them? To me, I'd rather have them the full weapon on offense.
I would too.
Than on special teams because the gap between Tyreek Hill and anybody else on offense is much wider than the gap between Tyreek Hill and McCole Hardman
Well said.
returning
Yeah.
the kick.
As long as McCole Hardman can keep his brain and not fair catch at the 2 and all that
And
stuff.
hold the ball.
And I also think, like, I'm sorry, Blair,
No,
but like,
go
come the wild card round when the Chiefs play their first playoff game.
That's Saturday noon kick.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's gonna be returning punts. Like I like that you can. He's your pinch hitter when there's a man on second and third, and you know what I mean. Like
Yeah. Well, I was
probably
gonna,
be bases loaded because they'd walk him at second and third,
right. That's right.
and the other team does walk him because they punt it out of bounds. Anyway, sorry about my analogy. It's gone on too long.
Well, but I was going to say, just the threat of Tyreek Hill returning punts is what forced the short punt from Minnesota
100%,
that set up
yep.
the Chiefs to have the game-winning field goal
Yep.
last week. So he didn't even touch the ball when he affected the game as a punt returner
he
against the Vikings.
Stalked around and they chanted his name, and the Vikings peed down their leg. That's all it took.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. So, okay, so let's enough with the Titans. But again, the reason we're spend so much time on the Titans is the Chiefs haven't had immediate availability this week. Today is the first time we'll talk to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. We'll get an injury update. Somebody wanted to know about Frank Clark. What do we think about Frank Clark? Looks like Emmanuel Ogbah's done for the year with a torn pec.
Yeah.
Which is, how does that affect the Chiefs on the defensive line rotation?
Well, hopefully you get Alex Okafor back, because Okafor, obviously with the ankle injury, has missed the last couple of games. But if he's back, then that softens the blow of losing Ogbah. But Ogbah's had a phenomenal season. 5.5 sacks, if I'm not mistaken, which is a career high, or matches his career high.
Team best.
So he's given the Chiefs everything you wanted out of a pass rusher. Hopefully you do get Okafor back. There are obviously a lot of injury issues that you have to deal with here. Martinez Rankin on injured reserve. He was phenomenal filling in there on the offensive line. The two key players to watch this week are going to be Eric Fisher and Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. We like to think they're close. They put in limited practices over the last couple of weeks, so this might be the week they do return, just in time ahead of the bye, or the Chiefs might decide to sit them another week, give them an extra time to heal.
One thing,
on Frank Clark, though, Sam got some great stuff out of Clark in the locker room on his neck.
Some pretty revealing stuff we really didn't know.
Yeah, he's been dealing with a pinched nerve since training camp. So it does explain the lack of explosion, I think, that we see on film when we rewatch their games. But the concerning thing is that's not usually something that just goes away in 2 weeks, which is what he's, I guess technically 2.5, because he played in a Thursday night game in Denver. But to me, this is going to be a factor for the rest of the season. And are you going to get the Frank Clark that you signed up for with draft pick compensation, financial compensation, and are we going to see it in 2019 at all?
That's the two things I think is very important about this injury. Like, they've been dealing with injuries all year, right? Like, that's been a thing that we talked about over and over. But Ogbah being out and this thing with Clark, these are the first two injuries, unless you go back to Breland Speaks, that are going to affect the Chiefs long term. All the other injuries have been, well, they'll be back in a month or 2 weeks or whatever. These things are going to be Ogbah out, and Clark, I agree with you, and that he's not going to wake up tomorrow and just be totally cured of this thing. Those are the two things I think are going to affect the Chiefs going forward the rest of the year.
Does that change the Chris Jones role? Do you keep him outside more?
I think they
maybe.
I think they will use him more outside with Ogbah out.
It's harder to double him.
Right. That's the way. What I was going to say, because that's the way he phrased it. He saw so many fewer double teams when he was playing on the outside, and to me, I mean, obviously that info relays on tape, but certainly he's in Steve Spagnuolo's ear saying, hey, I was able to do some more damage playing this spot because they can't pay as much attention to me. It's like, and even if they do, they've got to put one less receiver going out on a route. They've got to do some more creative stuff to compensate for that.
And he is such a home run hitter for them. I think he has a chance to have a Jorge Soler type of year on the outside, more so than on the inside. All right. So every week we get to a point where we talk about the rubber meets the road, where we have our esteemed panelist here give us you're esteemed.
All right.
It's true.
Which ones?
It's true. Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at the camera, not anybody individually here. For players we think will or should have a big game in the next time the Chiefs are playing, which is Monday night against the LA Chargers, or as we like to say, the San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles.
Of Mexico City.
In Mexico City.
Via Mexico City.
And in addition, I want our fellows here to also give me a confidence vote on the Chiefs, scale of 1 to 5. All right, 5 being most confident, 1 being less confident, obviously, very little confidence, on the probability of a Chiefs victory. You can even go negative on this. Go -1, -2. That would be probably a Chargers
Seems like
victory.
a hint when you allow that.
So, and finally, as we did a couple of weeks ago, we leave the gridiron for a question. This week, we celebrated Veterans Day on Monday, and one of our panelists, 20-year Army veteran, and Herbie Teope, I wanted to ask each of our guys what their favorite military-based movie was. 4 of us, I understand, have them, and the 5th is trying to come up with one. Has actually been Googling military movies to remind himself what exactly we're talking about. So, I'll tell you what, and to break it up, I'll go first. How about that today? All right. So, what were the questions? No. Look, rubber meets the road. I just mentioned him. I think it's Chris Jones. I do think Chris Jones is going to have to come up big in this game. He has the ability to come up big. I agree with our guys. I think we're going to see more snaps from him on the outside than on the inside. I don't think the Chiefs will be playing Colin Saunders and Derek Nottie and Pennell. I think he'll be active, but I don't think we'll see. With Melvin Gordon and Eckler, the Chargers can move the ball on the ground. Chiefs need to be able to plug that up, as they did 2 weeks ago against the Vikings. So he is my guy. Confidence factor for the Chiefs. I kind of think they're going to win this game, and I think they're going to have a good game. So I'm going 4 out of 5 in a confidence factor for the Chiefs. And I know it's easy, military movie. There were a lot of great ones on Veterans Day on the movie channels. There are a lot of them I like. Dirty Dozen is one of my old school favorite. But I'm going to go Saving Private Ryan. It's the one movie, maybe the one movie where I kind of get a little sniffly at the end.
You just gave it away. I haven't seen it.
Spoiler.
All right, so don't see it now, okay? Just don't see it. But at the end, when he's at in Normandy. So, all right, Vahe, you are next.
Tyrann Mathieu pick 6.
This is the week. I can't believe you predicted that. This is the week for the pick 6. It sets up perfectly. They're going to be trailing like 27-21, and it's going to be not just a pick 6, but like we'll all be fighting to write it. And I'll get to write it because I called it.
You've earned it.
So, let's just say it's already written, right?
Yeah, let me pull that back out of the archive. So Tyrann Mathieu with the pick 6
right, confidence
and
factor.
Rubber Meeting Road 4. It's a 4. It's
You've been
right where you
so
are.
good at this that you're now predicting when it's going to happen.
Well, I think I need to up my game is what I'm really trying to do here. It's like I need to drill in.
Favorite military movie?
Favorite military movie, really, I got to say 2 because 1 is a little flip. Herbie brought this up earlier, but really it is Stripes, but that's a little too,
No. You can. Not all of them have to be The Longest Day or Tora or anything.
But look, there's a lot in there, and Bridge over the River Kwai is a great
movie.
one.
Yep.
And I'll just mention those. Then, since you're allowing me the humorous one, I'll stick with Stripes. But there's so many. Battle of the Bulge.
Oh, fantastic.
And the other Steve McQueen one. The
Great Escape.
The Great Escape. Oh.
How good was that?
That was actually, I'm going with The Great Escape. Thanks for reminding me what it was.
That's a fantastic movie. Melly.
All right. So rubber meets the road. I'm not going to pick a player necessarily, but I'm going to pick an element of the game.
Okay.
If I can do that.
Yeah.
You mentioned Gordon and Eckler. The Chargers throw to their running backs more than any team in the league.
Ruh-roh.
I'm just saying. I think it's like 84 catches, something like that. They got to figure that out. So that's where my rubber meets the road.
It's been an issue at times.
Yeah, and Phillip Rivers has always liked to throw to his backs, but this year, maybe more than ever. Top Gun was like the first, sort of military-ish movie, but I also I get nerdy with documentaries, and the Ken Burns Civil War stuff is unbelievable.
That was phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
So is Vietnam.
All right, 1 to 5
confidence factor.
or 5 to 1 confidence factor.
You just said 4.
We have 2 4s on the board.
Yeah, I'm going to go 4.01. Price is right. It feels like the Denver game. It feels like, everybody was freaking out going into that Denver game, and then they just dominated the game. Obviously, the thing happened with the knee. But it's a division opponent. Andy Reid has owned the division. Extra day probably doesn't mean that much, but it has that feel to it to me.
Okay. All right. Sam.
Just make something up.
Rubber meets the road.
Kind of to build off the matchup that Sam did, I think it's a huge importance for Mitchell Schwartz. How healthy is his knee versus Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa? 2 guys we haven't mentioned, but that's the strength of the Chargers defense. So if Schwartz can neutralize one of those guys, it's going to do wonders for their offense. If he's a little bit hobbled, that's going to change the element of how things go for the Chiefs. Confidence factor, I think 4 probably sounds accurate. Tempted to go 4.02. And I have literally seen only one of the movies you guys have named so far, Top Gun, and I hated it. You know, in Rocky IV, there's a lot of military Cold War action going on in there. Rocky franchise is fantastic. Anytime I can put that into a conversation, I'm going to. So I'm going to go with Rocky IV.
Okay, yeah, that's not acceptable.
And you never saw Stripes?
Top Gun is the only movie of those guys, those ones you guys have mentioned that I've seen.
Rocky IV is Sam's favorite, like, baseball movie.
It's in Philly, so the Phillies are Phillies.
Leah Nichols weighs in. Dirty Dozen is a great movie. Thanks, Leah. I agree. It was just on Monday night. Had a great time watching it. Hey, John, thanks for the kind words. All right, Herbie. Rubber meets the road. Who needs to come up big?
I'm going to say it's going to be safety Juan Thornhill. We already mentioned the Honey Badger, but we know that the Chargers love their running backs, especially out of the backfield. Thornhill makes up for that missed tackle on Derrick Henry. That's the reason why Henry rambled for 68 yards.
Yeah.
I'm going to say my confidence factor, I'm going to go with a 5. The Chiefs over the last 10 games are 9-1 against the Chargers. I think they're going to get back on the winning track here. Even though the Chargers, as we know, seem to love the month of November. They're 7-3 in the month of November over the past 3 seasons, and they always seem to put themselves in the conversation heading into December, but not against the Chiefs.
Okay, all right, so hold that thought. So remember the 9-1? You remember the 1 was at Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah, last year, the
last
two-point
season.
conversion.
2-point conversion. With the phantom defense on the field.
Orlando Scandrick's funeral. That game. That was.
Yes. All right, Herbie. Military movie of your favorite or best done, or what? I'm sure you've got a lot of them.
There are quite a few. You have Platoon, which ranks up there. You have We Were Soldiers, ranks up there. The Big Red One ranks up there. Saving Private Ryan is a personal favorite of mine because I have been on Normandy Beach, stand there and know what happened there during D-Day. It's very surreal. But as a former Army drill sergeant, and when you watch war movies, I nitpick them because I know what it's like, and I want realism. You cannot go wrong with Full Metal Jacket.
Attaboy.
That first hour of that movie, Arlie Emery, he's a former Marine drill instructor. He nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And the crazy thing about that movie is he was signed on to be a military tech advisor. He was so good that they fired the actor who was supposed to play his role and just said, hey, step over on this side of the camera and do it. So any Hollywood producers out there, if you want an Army drill sergeant and you're working on a project, call me. But Full Metal Jacket, hands down.
All right, some of our viewers have weighed in. Dean DeCourcy, Patton.
Oh,
good.
Patton. I love Patton.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
what a fantastic movie
Absolutely.
that was.
I've seen that one for what it's worth. I'm up to 2.
Hey, so you're up to 2. That's good. We're
2.
taking a list. Jacob Calloway includes a Glory in his another one.
I've seen that one.
Oh,
You
yeah.
haven't? Oh my gosh.
Piercing.
Yep. And Jacob agrees with Full Metal Jacket as well.
Forrest Gump. Would we include that one?
Let me put it this way to you. Full Metal Jacket.
That's a great cooking movie. Okay.
Full Metal Jacket came out in the early 90s. Okay, and some of those lines, I became a drill sergeant at Fort Jackson from 97 to 99. I may or may not have stolen some of those lines from that movie when I was dealing with my trainees. That's how good it was.
Herbie, what about Officer and Gentleman and Lou Gossett's portrayal of the drill sergeant? Is that not as good?
That was more Hollywood because you had, what's his name, Richard Gere in that movie. So that was
Mayonnaise.
more Hollywood. Yeah, that was
Mayonnaise, that's right. Lou Gossett was really good.
Yeah, I
Lou
thought it
Gossett-
was good.
Right, okay. Eric Acuna likes Band of Brothers.
Yep, I almost mentioned that one.
Series,
It was
wasn't it?
great. Yep.
So,
HBO, I think.
Yep. Good calls, everybody. Okay, you guys heading to Mexico. Does neutral field, different environment? Andy Reid's such a creature of habit. The team's leaving on Sunday. I think Sunday morning instead of Sunday afternoon, which they usually do. I imagine they'll do a walkthrough at Estadio Azteca.
The Chargers are in Colorado all week.
Yeah, so Chargers trained in altitude this week. Teams have done that. Playing in Mexico, I think it's a 7,000 foot Mexico City, 7,000 feet elevation.
Higher than Denver.
Yeah,
2,000 miles higher than Denver.
Yep.
Just to
Not miles.
backtrack when on
Feet, 2,000
My,
feet.
my last job, when I covered sporting, they went to Mexico and they all slept in tents for like 2 weeks
Yeah,
to try and get
oxygen
used to
sort
the
of-
altitude. They went to Albuquerque, which also has significant altitude, I think higher than Denver. There were so many preparations to play that game. Now in soccer, you got to run basically 6.5 miles in a game, it's a little bit different. But still, I mean, if you're short on the defensive line like we think they might be, that could be a factor.
It could be, but I think of the Chiefs playing in Denver over the last few years too. They've won their last 5 games at that altitude, and I don't know if that's going to be much of a factor. I just don't know. It could be. We'll see. Something to keep an eye on for sure. But the different environment, everybody will be playing in the stadium for the first time. No familiarity for either team. I think if there's any edge at all in the game like this, it's an extra day for Andy Reid to prepare and design, a game plan. I can't think of anything else that.
Chargers have been off since Thursday, though.
That's right. That's exactly right. They beat the Raiders or lost to the Raiders.
Yeah, it's almost a bye week for them from Thursday to Monday. I mean, they've had a lot of time off.
And Phillip Rivers was terrible in that game, by the way.
Really bad.
0 for 7 in the last.
He might throw.
Yeah.
He might throw a pick.
He might. Okay. Hey, that'll do it for us today. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for your questions and comments and movie takes. And thanks to our guys, Herbie, Sam, Vahe, and Sam, and to Beth, and to Sarah and Jacob for joining us here today. We will talk to you guys again next week at a Big O Tires in the Kansas City metro area.